those returned by FCs and those returned by GCs through direct elections by President, declare the motion passed.
Second Members Motion. The Honourable Andrew Leung will move a motion under Rule 49E2 of the Rules of Procedure to take note of the Air Pollution Control Marine Light Diesel Regulation, which was included in Report Number 13/13 to 14 of the House Committee laid on the table of this Council. According to the relevant debating procedure, I will first call upon Honourable Andrew Leung to speak and move the motion, and then call upon the Chairman of the subcommittee formed to scrutinise the relevant item of subsidiary legislation, Honourable Sit-ho, to speak, to be followed by other members. I will then call upon, finally, the public officer to speak. The debate will come to a close after the public officer has spoken, and the motion will not be put to a vote. Members who wish to speak, please press the request to speak button. Mr. Andrew Leung. According to Rule 49E2, in my capacity as Chairman of the House Committee, I move that the motion be printed on the agenda be passed, so that members can take note of Report Number 13/13 to 14 of the House Committee laid on the table of the Council, and so that there can be a debate on the Air Pollution Control Marine Light Diesel Regulation. I now propose the question to you, and that is that the motion moved by Andrew Leung be passed. Ms. Sit-ho. Thank you, President. In my capacity as the subcommittee to scrutinize the Air Pollution Control Marine Light Diesel Regulation, I speak. And this is a regulation to regulate that by weight, the light diesel used by vessels in Hong Kong should not exceed 0.05%. This regulation will kick in on the 1st of April 2014. We have held 2 meetings with the administration, and we have received 3 submissions. Marine diesels are the largest local emission source. In order to reduce vessel emission, subcommittee members generally support the regulation that there will be a sulfur content up to 0.05% for marine light diesel used by vessels. The subcommittee is aware that the administration consulted the importers and suppliers and the local trades which use marine fuels, and I know that in principle they do not object to the regulation. As to whether there are cost implications after the regulation will become effective, the administration says that it will provide the Electrical Panel on Economic Development with monthly import price of LSD for monitoring by the public. If there is significant difference between the retail price and the import price of LSD, the oil companies will need to explain why this is the case. The administration has also pointed out that there is no cause for concern about price manipulation, as LSD is a standard type of MLD available in the Asian market. Moreover, all oil companies have confirmed their ability to supply LSD. Members query the effectiveness of the implementation of the regulation to improve the ambient air quality of Hong Kong, as the sulfur content of heavy oil used by ocean-going vessels or OGVs whilst at berth in Hong Kong waters is not regulated by the regulation. The administration has explained that since OGVs operated internationally, the sulfur content of heavy fuel oil used by OGVs could not exceed 3.5% as specified by the IMO. To help improve air quality, particularly in the port areas, the administration plans to mandate all OGVs to switch to the use of fuel containing not more than 0.5% sulfur when berthing in Hong Kong waters in 2015. Members have asked whether an operation of a local vessel who unknowingly supplied MLD containing a sulfur content exceeding 0.05% to an operator of another local vessel at the request of the latter at sea commits an offence under the regulation. Because Section 4(1) of the regulation stipulates that a person commits an offence if the person supplies or causes to be supplied any MLD that does not comply with Schedule 1. The administration has replied affirmatively. The operator commits an offence if he supplies any MLD that does not comply with Schedule 1. If Section 4(1) of the regulation targets only MLD importers, suppliers, a person caught under this section might try to argue that she is only providing MLD for his or her friend, which does not amount to a business of supplying MLD. Therefore, a person in Section 4(1) should include the operator in the example above so as not to seriously undermine the effectiveness of the regulation. On the request of the BC, the administration promised to step up education to allow owners and operators of local vessels to know that the target of the regulation is suppliers of MLD, not users. Members have also asked about the definitions of warship and any other vessel on military service referred to Section 4(2) of the regulation. The administration has advised that in the regulation, warship and any other vessel on military service mentioned in Section 4(2) refer collectively to military vessels. In other pieces of legislation relating to maritime activities, military vessels are also mentioned, but no definition is given in the legislation. Warships and any other vessels on military service are both in the establishment of the Navy, with the latter supporting the operation of the former. A bunker is a typical example. Up to now, no enforcement problem has been encountered. Members support the coming into effect of the regulation on the 1st of April 2014. Now I'd like to speak my own views on the regulation. We all support the regulation because there is a lot of pollution caused in the harbor by the diesel used by marine vessels. Now the sulfur content is still very high compared to low sulfur petrol or diesel used by vehicles. The sulfur content is still some distance away. When we seek to control the fuel used by vehicles and when we consider having electric vehicles, I think it is high time we controlled the sulfur content in marine diesel. This regulation seeks to regulate supply. In other words, local suppliers and importers are the targets of the regulation. However, many vessels in Hong Kong also ply in rivers and waters in the Pearl River Delta. Some are river trade vessels and they engage in different kinds of marine traffic. Therefore, if we only regulate supply in Hong Kong, but we do not take a further step to have cross-border collaboration with the Guangdong province, the effect may not be good enough. In other words, you can only control small fishing vessels plying their vessels in Hong Kong waters. Mr. President, it was mentioned that if an operator in Hong Kong waters will supply MLD to a friend, it's just like vehicles which may break down, and so you use a jump start cable to help start a vehicle. Now, if that kind of MLD supplied is not in line with the regulation, then would they be regulated by the law? This is our worry. Because if you say it is an emergency situation and if it is just helping friends and you do not regulate it, then in the end you will have something like the water market in Bangkok. People will always say, I like to help him do the last leg of his journey so he can come back to Hong Kong by supplying MLD with a higher sulfur content. This might have been supplied by the mainland, and if people always use the excuse of helping a friend in an emergency, then that would undermine the effectiveness of the regulation. I thank the administration for clarifying the situation in the subcommittee. We should complement it with education, of course, so Hong Kong fishing vessels will know that they have to make use of MLD, which complies with the regulation, and that is a sulfur content of only up to 0.05% by weight. If they don't, then they will fall into the definition of supplier, and there may be legal liability. As for OGVs, it is another pollution source. We, of course, have a program that if they change to low sulfur content fuel when they come into Hong Kong, then there could be free berthing. And also, there will also be laws to be made later on to regulate this. But then in Kowloon East, we now have the cruise terminal. We hope there will be one cruise or two cruises berthed there all the time. But now we do not provide onshore electricity. These cruises are berthed within the Victoria Harbour, which is also a place very close to the town centre. If the diesel used has a high sulfur content, the emissions would be bad for the health of people in Kowloon East, Sampo Kong, and Kowloon City. We hope a law will be passed soon to regulate OGVs. That is the diesel they use, and it is also hoped that the administration can also supply onshore electricity. Internationally, there is no uniform system, but in fact, we are just talking about two systems. We have a large cruise terminal. How come we cannot provide electricity onshore by making use of both systems? Last point. Many fishing organizations are worried that the cost will be like LPG for taxis. In other words, it will be very acceptable when the law is made, but then there will be continuous hike after the law is passed. Now LPG used by taxis is a few times more expensive than the time when the law was made. So they are worried. It is said that it will be transparent. It is said that if the retail price is a huge distance away from the import price, then the importer will have to explain his case. However, that would be all an explanation, but there will be no statutory basis for the administration to do effective regulation. In other words, the explanation will just remain an explanation and the administration will be a toothless tiger. In fact, residents of outlying islands are also worried because the vessel fares for them are already expensive. If the LSD will mean that the cost implications will be transferred to them, then they would have to pay more to maintain their daily living. In this regard, the administration can, of course, take administrative measures and ask oil companies to explain a big difference between import price and the retail price. But then I would hope that laws would also be made for the purpose.
Mr. Frankie Yik. Mr. President, last year, the WHO, for the first time, regarded outdoor air quality as one of the major carcinogenic substances. So we are also very concerned about air quality. According to the Hong Kong U-Hadley Index in 2012, social costs caused by air pollution amounted to 3.3 billion, and then intangible losses over 36 billion, and there were 3,000 premature deaths caused by poor air quality. So I think it's important that we do something to improve upon our air quality. I represent the transport constituency, and both vehicles and vessels are regarded as the main culprits for air pollution. Well, of course, if the measures proposed to improve upon air quality are reasonable, we will support those so long as they do not cause undue hardship on us. In January, there was a scheme on the replacement of diesel vehicles. Initially, there wasn't enough support for the scheme. It was not that people in the transport sector did not support environmental protection and better air quality. They were of the view that the scheme was not feasible, and the operating cost of the sector would be greatly increased. But then there was a frank discussion between the government and the transport sector, and as a result, the concerns of the sector were allayed, and the sector ultimately decided to support the scheme. So, concerning the statutory sulfur limit of 0.05% on MLD, if this will not bring about a substantial increase in the operating cost, then I think the industry will support the proposal. With regard to the sulfur content of MLD, and the need to reduce pollution caused by our vessels, the industry basically supports this idea. In fact, the industry has supported the government's tests on MLD. I want to declare interest. I am one of the directors of Star Ferry, which took part in the trial on MLD. So with the new statutory limit, the sulfur content of MLD will be reduced by 90%, and that will of course help to bring about better air quality. Now we understand that at the moment we have MLD as well as ultra low sulfur diesel 0.005%, and for ULSD the price is 20% higher than that of MLD. At the moment, for MLD, the sulfur content is 0.5%, and of course, the industry is concerned about the increase in cost. And also, more fuel will be consumed if low sulfur diesel is used. If we're talking about 500 to 600 liters per day, then the monthly extra cost in terms of fuel will exceed $10,000. So we can see that ferry operators are very concerned because they are already operating under very difficult conditions, and their operating costs will be increasing further. There are 6 ferry routes subsidized by the government, but the operators will not be able to cope with the extra costs. And for ferry routes not subsidized by the government, the operators will find it even more difficult to cope. And as a result, ferry operators may have to increase the fares, and then the traveling public will be affected, or ferry operators may decide to leave the market, and this will also have affect the passengers. So concerning the MLD, for the new MLD, the increase in the price will be about 1%. So for for a fuel with a statutory sulfur limit of 0.05%, if the increase in cost is only 1%, then that would mean an extra cost of about $1,000 per month, and that's acceptable to the industry. The former Secretary for the Environment said that we had to pay a price for environmental protection. I'm sure the transport sector is willing to do its part to bring about better air quality. But then some have pointed out that the difference of 7 cents is based on the offshore price in Singapore, and the ultimate difference will be more than 7 cents. And so the industry is worried that the fuel cost will increase quite substantially, and not only slightly. According to the administration, the supply of MLD has been increasing. As at the end of last year, the supply had increased by 20%. And with the regulation, oil companies must supply MLD with 0.05% sulfur content. And it is said that oil companies do not need to do extra processing concerning such new MLD, and so the price will not be excessively high, but then still the industry is worried. And so if for MLD with a sulfur content of 0.05%, if the price increases substantially, then the industry would welcome some assistance or subsidy from the administration. I hope that the Bureau will consider the trade's suggestion. I believe the administration is well aware of difficulties faced by ferry operators. At the moment, the government is providing subsidies to 6 ferry routes. And also, the government has been providing various incentives and concessions to encourage operators to use cleaner fuel, for example, reduction in port fees and charges, exemption of first registration tax for vehicles, and so on and so forth. So the government is willing to use various incentives and concessions to attract operators to switch to cleaner fuel. And I think the same measures should apply to the marine marine transport sector. I want to say that oil prices have come down somewhat, but still the prices are high. So we hope that there can be proper monitoring of the oil companies. There should be greater transparency concerning oil prices. There should be regular reports to the Economic Development Panel on, say, the input price of low sulfur diesel, so that people will be able to monitor the price movements of MLD on the internet. But of course, all companies may still try to manipulate prices. So there must be proper monitoring of all companies, so that all companies will not merely increase prices and not reduce prices. And then concerning vessels inadvertently using MLD with a sulfur content of more than 0.05%, would that be an offense? But according to the administration, the regulation targets the suppliers only. So in order that the marine transport industry can understand more about the content of the regulation, the administration has promised to step up publicity and education. The EPD will, on Friday this week, give a briefing to local vessel owners and operators. So we welcome such arrangements. Concerning the air quality in Hong Kong, I understand that apart from this regulation, the administration will also put forward a regulation to require ocean-going vessels berthing in Hong Kong to switch to cleaner fuel. But I think in order to bring about comprehensive improvement to air quality in Hong Kong, we also need the cooperation of the Guangdong province. And so I hope that a consensus can be reached as soon as possible with the authorities in Guangdong. Otherwise, although we switch to cleaner fuel, although we tighten up emission standards, we will not be able to achieve significant improvements with regard to our air quality standards. So these remarks, I support the air pollution control marine light diesel regulation.
Does any other member wish to speak? If not, then I now call upon the Secretary for the Environment to speak. The debate will come to a close after the Secretary has spoken. Mr. President, the administration would like to amend the air pollution control marine light diesel regulation. The purpose is to enhance the quality of the locally supplied marine light diesel so as to reduce vessel emission and then enhance air quality so as to better protect public health. I'm grateful to Ms. Ho, who is the chair lady of the subcommittee on air pollution control marine light diesel regulation, and the members as well as the staff of the Secretariat of the LegCo, because you have completed the deliberation as well as the report in the month of February. I am grateful to members who spoke. We are grateful to your comments and support. In the year 2012, vessel emission was the largest source of air pollution in Hong Kong. Vessel emission accounted for half of the total emission of sulfur dioxide in Hong Kong. And then nitrogen oxides and respirable suspended particulates also accounted for 1/3 of the total pollution load. By enhancing the quality of MLD, locally supplied MLD will then be less polluted. And after implementing the regulation, locally supplied MLD must not contain more than 0.05% sulfur by weight. And then when compared with the current 0.5% MLD, it means a reduction of 90%, and it means that a reduction of SO2 by 90% and RSP by 30%, and the total vessel emission of SO2 and RSP will be reduced by 10% or 4% respectively. This will enhance the air quality and will protect public health, in particular the conditions along the coast. The regulation will provide for the statutory sulfur limit of MLD. It is set at 0.05%, which is 90% lower than the existing content or limit of 0.5%. We're also going to make regulations concerning the specifications of oil products so as to make sure that they're up to the international specifications. The regulation also requires the MOD importers to keep the relevant quality test reports. MOD importers and suppliers must also keep transaction records for inspection by law enforcement agencies. If necessary, the law enforcement agencies may also take samples from the supply points of MLD for the purpose of testing. The regulation takes the approach of control at source. In other words, we control the quality of MLD supplied locally rather than the quality of the MLD used. In fact, many local or river trade vessels have only got one tank on board. If we mandate that they must empty the fuel in their tank before entering Hong Kong waters and be refilled with the low sulfur MLD supplied in Hong Kong, then it would not be practicable. In drawing up the regulation, the EPD in the past 2 years have been in close cooperation with the local shipping industry as well as the MLD suppliers. About 20 consultation sessions where briefings were held to collect the views of the industry. When we decided on the details of the regulation, we have already taken on board the views of the industry. Having taken into account the views of the industry and after analyzing the supply of the MLD locally, we have decided to set the sulfur limit at 0.05% for MLD. In other words, we're looking at a low sulfur diesel, and this is the standard type of MLD, and there is an adequate supply in the Asian market. We have been confirmed that there will be an adequate supply. The industry is concerned about the enhancement of quality may affect the operation costs. We have decided to apply the new standards across the board instead of selectively. As a result, all companies do not have to acquire additional equipment or have additional arrangements. Therefore, the additional cost would merely be reflecting the price differential between high sulfur diesel and low sulfur diesel. Currently, it is about 1% of the retail price, and it is going to narrow. In addition, the EPD, through the Economic Development Panel of the LegCo, will report monthly the import prices of low sulfur diesel. It will be uploaded onto the LegCo website so as to enhance the transparency. Some industry participants have been concerned about the application of the low sulfur diesel in the case of the engines of local vessels. They're concerned about the compatibility with older types of engines. The EPD and the shipping industry, including ship owners, vessel operators and mechanical repairers, set up a working group on enhancing the quality of diesel. And we have entrusted the Department of Mechanical Engineering of Hong Kong U to carry out, and in fact they have completed a technical study to confirm that the vessels can take the low sulfur diesel as far as the engines are concerned. The subcommittee has raised a number of recommendations, and they've been taken on board. They've asked us to step up the publicity and education so as to allow the industry to understand the quality of the MLD. That will be the subject matter of control rather than the use of the MLD. Therefore, we have been arranging for briefing sessions. And in fact, we understand that there should be training for the operators so that they know how to maintain the vessels using the low sulfur diesel, and there should be other low pollution technologies. In fact, technically speaking, use of low sulfur diesel can reduce the wear and tear on the wall of the engine tanks and can improve the performance of the engines. We are closely liaising with the VTC so as to arrange for necessary training. Some have asked for more technical studies concerning emission reduction and energy conservation. We are watching the developments at the international level, and if the industry would like to consider new transport technology, they may apply to the EPD in relation to the use of the Environment and Conservation Fund and the Pilot Green Transport Fund. And in fact, they have been trying out new technologies. We are also trying to explain once again the definitions of warship and any other vessels on military service. Generally speaking, will consider the following factors to decide whether vessels are regarded as warships or any other vessels on military service. First, any vessel under the establishment of the Navy. Second, whether there are external signage that identify the nationality. Third, under the command of the officers appointed by the national authority. This is in line with the international practice. Usually, we don't have laws specifying the clear definition of warships. And when there is law enforcement, we will also base our consideration on the above-mentioned factors. There haven't been any problems with law enforcement. So in future, when we enforce the regulation, we'll apply the same factors. For warship and any other vessel on military service, all of them are within the establishment of the Navy. For the latter kind, it is to assist in the operation of warships and bunker vessels being a typical example. The regulation will come into effect on the 1st of April, and then the quality of MLD supplied locally will be greatly enhanced, reducing vessel emission, improving our air quality, protect public health, and enhance our image as a green port. I thank members for your support. Thank you. In accordance with Rule 49E9 of the Rules of Procedure, I will not put any question on the motion.
第三項議員